Hello, everybody. It's me, Fee, White Zulu, and I want to welcome you to another chapter of, another chapter of Okavango Diary. And I hope you're enjoying these readings. I want to welcome you all. And if you are enjoying them, please share or press the like button or whatever people do if they want to. I'm sorry, I'm a bit Diomaka today. I haven't got any words in front of me to read, so I'm doing this off the cuff. However, this is a greeting to you all and a welcome, and I hope that you enjoy these chapters that I'm reading out. They go out twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, if all goes well. And enjoy them, and thank you so much for listening to them. Share them around. Thank you, and goodbye.
1st of July, no guests, so Marc and I had an afternoon off, and Fred had told us to take the bakkie, 6 cold beers, and enjoy some game viewing, including a night drive. We set off at 3 in the afternoon and meandered through the Moremi Game Reserve after rattling over the Kwai River on the rickety bridge made of poles laid upon other poles. We went to a particularly good bit of wetland where there was a huge deep lake of crystal clear water, pretty much as far as the eye could see. Marc reversed the bakkie up to a good viewing area and left the engine to idle. There was a small breeding herd of elephants drinking there, complete with tiny babies, so small they could walk under their mothers' bellies with ease, denoting that they were only 3 weeks or a few months old and hadn't reached a year yet. As the sun sank lower across the water, more and more elephants arrived, until there must have been 300 of them, all separate family groups, but drinking and bathing comfortably alongside each other. There was no pushing and shoving or any form of aggression, and clearly these elephants knew each other. The matriarchs would have been related in the way of being sisters, aunts, and mothers, and the little ones all seemed delighted to see each other and were play wrestling with their little trunks and trying to knock each other over into the water. The 5 to 6-year-olds were actually swimming, just showing the tips of their trunks as snorkels. The mothers guarded the very smallest ones from getting in too deep by curling their trunks around them and pulling them back. This delightfully peaceful scene carried on until the sun set properly, leaving the sky scarlet red, which reflected off the water. And then, at a signal given by one of the matriarchs, each little family began to dissipate and move off, and within minutes, there wasn't an elephant to be seen nor heard. We continued slowly through the bush, and Marc stopped to show me an area under some huge wild fig trees where the earth had been gouged out and deep holes made. The colour of that earth and the surrounding area had a dark purple shade to it. This is all neat gin. There are certain vital minerals in this particular soil, explained Marc. One of the guides showed me some time ago. All kinds of animals come here to lick it and extract the elements, including salt. From elephants to warthogs, giraffe to buffalo and all kinds of buck, they come here from all over for miles to get at what they need. The colour of that particular earth reminded me of the salt lick blocks we used to put out all over the farm at home for our cattle to enjoy. Finally, just before it got too dark to see, we spotted 2 male cheetahs sitting regally on top of a large termite mound. They were scanning the open veldt for buck to hunt. Apparently those 2 are called the brothers by the guides, explained Marc, who'd already been at Tsaro for nearly a year and had been out on many game drives before and was a guide himself. I had guide status with the Natal Parks Board, but had not registered as one in Botswana as I'd been far too busy. I still pitched in as a guide when we were short, as I'd had so much training during my experiences doing game capture work in the Moremi Game Reserve. These 2 have grown up together as sibling cubs and have formed a coalition, explained Marc, as we sat and drank cold beers while we watched to see if they would begin stalking a herd of impala, which were grazing some way away. But it had got too dark to see, so we went home eventually to enjoy a hot meal and a blissfully early night. Early evenings were very pleasant as well. While guests were bathing and changing after their afternoon game drives, Fred, Marc and I managed to catch a moment in the bar, a nice cold drink before they arrived. Fred was a wonderful raconteur. He'd been working in the bush in the capacity of relief camp manager for Heartless Safaris and other various outfits for as long as 10 years, and had seen a lot of sights, both among the guests and the game. He'd also begun to thaw out towards me, the reasons for which I will explain later. One evening he regaled us with a story of when the permanent manager was handing over to him just before he and his wife left for their month's leave. It was an extremely hot midsummer's day, and they were both in the thatched rondavel office with the window wide open as usual. The manager was sitting at his desk, his chair tilted back, with his bare legs up and his feet, clad in veldschoens, propped up on the windowsill, while he was talking to my own office on the radio. In mid-conversation, he suddenly said, "Fork," and then went totally silent. Fred looked up from his chair across the room in surprise to see why he'd stopped talking. A black mamba, one of the deadliest snakes in the world, and about 12 feet long, had slithered into the open window and was now wriggling down the manager's bare leg towards a gap in the leg of his shorts. He was frozen as still as a statue, and his face had gone deathly white. I held my breath as I watched this lethal snake gliding up along his legs. It was so long it seemed endless, said Fred. And then finally it fell with a loud thud onto the floor. It slithered around the cool office floor for a minute or so, sliding up the wall now and again looking for an exit. By this time I had my own feet up on the desk and me curled into a ball in my office chair. Eventually, after what seemed a lifetime, the snake slid out of the office doorway, along the tiled entranceway, and into a shrubbery outside. In the meantime, my own office had been calling frantically on the radio, asking what was causing the silence, and then we told them about the snake encounter. Another one of Fred's stories was when one evening a pack of wild dogs chased a buck called a lechwe up the lawn where it had been grazing with the others. In its panic, the buck dived into one of the guests' rondavels. Mercifully, they were still out on their game drive and there was nobody home. But that pack of dogs followed it into the hut, caught the buck, ripped it to pieces as they do, swallowed as much as they could to take back to the den for their pups, and made off with the remaining pieces of meat down the lawn and away into the bush. It all happened in about 20 minutes, said Fred. Utterly horrified, we ran around the camp, rounding up every member of staff we could find, and then into the rondavel with buckets of soapy water, mops, brushes and cloths to clean up the mess before the guests got back. Surprisingly, there wasn't that much blood, and the dogs had left very little trace of their festive slaughter. Cleaned up everything and left the place looking as though nothing had happened there. That evening, a guest from that rondavel arrived at the bar, holding a white, fluffy lechwe tail, which he had found in his slipper. But we pretended that it was nothing important, possibly something one of the tree squirrels had brought in for nesting material, and so they were none the wiser, he chuckled. I was in the kitchen that evening, overseeing the cream of leek and potato soup we were having for dinner, when Fred came quietly into the kitchen and called me outside. We have a problem, he said. The bloke who drives the old Bedford truck up with our heavy supplies has arrived very late and he's dead drunk. I opened the driver's door and he actually fell onto the ground, followed by an avalanche of empty brandy bottles. He's almost comatose. One of the guides and I have put him into Pilot's Hut 1 for the night, but he has to leave at first light in the morning in order to get to Kugana before nightfall tonight. I'd heard about this man who worked for the safari company and his propensity for drink. Our new generator hut was on the back of the lorry to replace the one which an elephant had sat on and squashed flat. What would you like me to do to help? I asked. Get one of those thermos 1-litre jugs and fill it to the brim with the strongest coffee you can make. I'll start pouring it down his throat to try and sober him up a bit. Then make up a tray of sandwiches and some muffins so that he's gotten something in him to sop up the booze. I quickly complied with these requests and took the tray along to the pilot's hut, where I found a very small, slight, unshaven man lying there on the bed with his filthy veldschoons on. The whole room stank of alcohol. Fred was standing over him and poured him a large mug of strong black coffee, forcing him to sit up and drink it. Leave the tray there on the bedside table, he instructed me, and go and hold the fort at the lodge with the guests. I'll get this bastard sobered up, whether he likes it or not. I've already frisked his cab for bottles or cans and confiscated those, checked his pockets and taken away the half-jack of Captain Morgan rum, which he still had clutched in his hand. Finally, I'm going to see to it that he can't get at any of the grog and the cargo, so I'm locking him into this hut. The following morning at 6, I heard the familiar rumbling of the old war-issue army truck starting up, and assumed that the driver had managed to sober up enough to get to his next destination before dark.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to my videos and my stories of my life. And I want to thank John Moslane for being what I call the sound engineer, but I'm sure there's a more professional word for it. However, faithful, and for 4 years now, I think, he has been here for me every Wednesday. Well, I think it's Wednesdays, but once a week to record 2 chapters of whichever book it is I'm reading. And without him, this couldn't be done. So a big thank you to John. Also, Sean van Vuren, we send the videos to him. Sorry, I'm not reading this, I'm just doing it off the cuff. And my brain is a bit Jumaka. And Sean uploads them to the YouTube channel where you can find them all in playlists. He does it beautifully. And I want to thank them both for all the help that they give me. Well, it's not help, they do everything for me. And it's a great asset. So also, I have a website called whitezulubook.com, obviously www in front of it, but you'll find it there. Quite easy to find. Johnny Clegg's called The White Zulu. Mine's called White Zulu. And you will find on my website, you'll find all kinds of photographs going way back to when my ancestors settled in the Cape, 1652. Well, not photographs of them, but descriptions, this photograph of my grandmother's wedding, and lovely, lovely photos of the farm we still own. My sister sent me a photograph this morning of the farm in midsummer, and she says how beautiful it's looking. I've had a lot of rain. So, just want to thank my helpers, John and Sean, to thank you all for listening, and also please share this with everybody else. Hit the like button and enjoy. Goodbye.